Hey guys, Dr. Prometheus here, back with our off-season wrap-up of the Eagles franchise. A little late with this because was doing some stuff with the computer upgrading, getting some stuff situated, but now we are here and let's crack right into it. So for the playoffs, how they got there, the Green Bay Packers had the 1 seed, beat the Bears and the 49ers to get into the Super Bowl. The Titans went through the Steelers, Chiefs, and Browns to get there as the 2 seed. So thinking about it before the Super Bowl, a little idea on the roster. We made a couple of trades during the season. Our starting right guard and right tackle, we did trade. We put Siomalo over from left guard to right. We want to build around Dickerson. Kelsey will likely retire as an Eagle at this point, and Mailata as our left tackle. Goddard will be our tight end, but behind him we don't have much depth. Devonta Smith is the receiver 1, but behind him I have no idea. Miles Sanders is the halfback going forward. With Jalen Hurts, looking at his first season there in, I think he played in 2020 4 or 5 games, and then you kind of know how we did with him. We threw something like 30 picks at that point. This is the sim stats from when we started because of the scouting update. But Hurts with 2 years, I think I'm going to give him another year at this point, and really it's up to him to prove if he is our QB1. For the defense, I was thinking about a lot of changes here. Slay is going to stay here. We traded for Darby on his rookie deal. Maddox is likely out the door. Also the same thing at the safeties. McLeod, Harris. Might look to a 3-4 so we can get more talent out there with Cox, Hargrave. Maybe we can get Ridgeway, Sweat, Graham. We can get more talent out on the field. Plus I think we're better suited at linebacker to do that. For the Super Bowl, Derrick Henry gets the MVP, while the Titans go on and beat the Packers 38-17. One of my most memorable times watching football and the Super Bowl was the Kurt Warner Rams taking on the Titans, and the one where Mason was stopped at the 1-yard line and the Rams took the Super Bowl. But this time, it is the Titans beating the Packers, getting their first Super Bowl ring. And they put up 21 points in the second quarter and did not look back from there. So a good win for Tennessee. Kaiser with the trick play completion there, but Tannehill, clean game with only 122 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rodgers took 5 sacks. That's probably the deciding factor there with a pick and 2 touchdowns, almost 300 yards for him. Just could not overcome that defense. But Derrick Henry, 192 on the ground off 19 carries and 3 touchdowns. That's what really seals this game. And then A.J. Brown catching those 2 touchdowns from Tannehill with 6 catches and 61 yards go along with that. Just a lot there. The storyline in Green Bay is, well, does Aaron Rodgers stay? Does Davante Adams stay? Do they both go? Or does one move on? So that's one of the biggest storylines there. We'll see who hits free agency, but first we have ourselves the mock draft 3, which is the first mock draft going in the offseason here before we see any combine or any additional looks at pro days. So at number 2, which is the Dolphins first round pick that we get from a trade, and they picked Justice McCree as going at 2. So the thought process is here, we need more than one player to really get the edge here. We saw Chris Carmichael, a lot of corners out here. Very corner deep class. But with this, I was thinking that maybe sure we get a big corner prospect, but we have more issues, particularly offensive line, kind of revamping that. But also in the fact that the defense is not great at safety. Harris leaving. Harris just doesn't have the speed to play deep downfield like how I want to play. And McLeod is getting up there in age. So we need at least one safety, and we spotted some guys like that. But also we need another, I think, middle linebacker. We transfer to a 3-4. Our needs kind of reduce some in having pass rushing guys on the outside. But I felt like the biggest thing and biggest bang for our buck here was to trade back, and we saw a lot of good prospects. Mike Davis also falling in the draft by 8 spots. We saw some quarterbacks drop, which kind of boded well to possibly snagging one, but at the end of the day, we saw a lot of changes, especially in the secondary, with guys like Kerry Towns coming up and being in the first round now, coming up from the second round. Started seeing a lot of guys shift around towards the bottom. Quincy Randolph pops up 13, another corner. Benning Whittington dropped 15. You had Hall coming forward. You had a couple running backs up in moving from the second, I think even one from the third round into the 32nd spot in the mock draft. So a lot of movement, and I felt comfortable that even if we traded back, we could get some playmakers that are absolutely beasts, and I think we could do that. So as we look at releases here, nothing big, although Janoris Jenkins is released there. Looking through, Rudolph is another one that is released. Might be a good backup here. Moving down, Will Lutz, the kicker. Tyler Haneke was another one that I saw that might be someone that we could go after. Carl Nassib kind of caught my eye there. Underrated player, but pretty good guy that can be in the rotation. Dean Lowry is out there. Jamal Williams, a guy that the Lions just picked up and actually let go after that. Kind of going through there. Ikebum, another guy I think the 49ers got. And so we go towards the re-signing. So Kelsey only wants $11 million a year, which is actually the franchise tag price. I think the franchise tag price is just a little under that. We give him an offer that I believe that was fair, but he goes ahead and denies that. So we're going to wait on who we get the franchise tag to. Josh Sweat is the guy we want to build around. We'll give him a 2-year deal, and he will accept that one. Moving on, Eric Wilson, a guy I've said we want to build this defense around, 27 years old, coming over from the Vikings, wants his fair offer is 11.1 over 2 years. So about a 6.2 offer. We give him around that, and he signs. And here's the free agency class. So after franchise tagging Kelsey, we look to possibly upgrade some players. And Devontae Adams was a big guy that I want to kind of upgrade the receiving core. But looking through here, we also have the idea that maybe we can come in and get someone that can be a good backup for Hurts. We don't really have a backup at this point. So it was one thing we thought about there. But Devontae Adams, let's take a look at him. This is a once and possibly a franchise guy that you see out there. Had 198 targets and caught 111 passes. Like, great hands, can go up and get the ball, good speed, pair him with Devontae Smith. You got the Devontae twins out there, or Devontae squared, and we are going to go ahead and give him a big deal. We let Mailata test free agency at this point because we thought maybe a left tackle could be in the draft later on. We did spot one in the second or third round. So we let him test, and he gets a lot of interest, so bringing him in just isn't an idea. I like Sam Mustipher as a guy that can come in and play a depth role at center, but also either guard position. Pretty good from our Bears franchise. I really just enjoy his strength and his ability to play the center as a backup. So we're kind of going through more here in our negotiations. Cordell Patterson, Fluker, Big Ben, Nassib, Wiley, Ridgeway we bring in. And so that is who we test first when we go into some of the draft stories. So we saw a lot here. I did like this. Harris dropped down boards because of injury concerns, some big ones there. We saw Jason Cutler, the left tackle that I was thinking about. And this injury kind of changed my idea on Mailata. So Jason Cutler had an injury that actually had him withdraw from the combine and actually not commit to a pro day. And that made him drop out of the middle of the first round to likely into the second or third round. A big value pick, a first rounder dropping that much because of injury concerns, it is a risk. But if it pans out, that's one that could be possibly our future left tackle for this franchise. We had a lot of halfbacks as well, get some good awards. Halfback Richardson gets the best running back. We also had some good receivers out there, which was great. Ross Anderson, the corner, wins the Heisman. So we have some good storylines here, and I think we could make a big impact. Now, my thought process here was, again, we're looking for guys that are falling out of that top 10 and would be available where we trade back. We're thinking about trading back somewhere around that, because we're at number 2, maybe that 5 through 11 spot, somewhere in there. And if that causes a double trade back twice, well, then that could be where we see a player that we want to take and could mix up the draft a little bit. Because I did notice that the mock drafts kind of do tend to be how the AI and how the first round kind of goes. It goes generally just like that, and the only time it's really messed with is when players or when teams trade up for a certain player. So we had a couple of crazy stories for some players, and then we had some good reactions on the right side. A lot of DBs getting attention. We had that middle linebacker, Sharif Rushing, was falling down here off the board. And that could have been one thing. But really, I think the top 10 was solidified way before the draft. And that was one thing that I always thought was kind of weird in the offseason, was the top 10 in the mock drafts don't really change between 3, 4, and 5, those mock drafts, so we really only need to take a look at one. And looking at Cutler here, we bring him in for a workout, and still a projected first or second rounder, and I did like him. Another guy we're going to target in the draft is Graham Bryant. Looks like he could be a guy that plays that middle linebacker role with some good speed. Saw Quincy Givens, seemed more like a guy out of Iowa State that was rushing the passer. Pursuit is there, good solid strength, so not your guy that's going to play in the middle, but he seemed like a good first or second round guy with some strength in there that can rush the passer. The cornerbacks, though, Freeman, Carmichael, and Dawson, those guys up there. But then you have Andrew Buckley kind of sneaking up into the late first rounds. Possibly Kerry Towns is up there. Gilchrist, Ross Anderson from that Heisman win jumps up 14 spots up into a solid first round pick. The guy that we thought at safety, Hugh Nails, out of Washington, 22 years old, a projected second or third round pick, and I think this guy's a steal. I mean, with decent acceleration and that kind of thing, I did not think his acceleration was going to be that bad with the great speed. So, looking at our signings, we get Nassib, Patterson, Wiley, Devontae Adams, and Sam Mustipher all signed. So we're going to have Patterson kind of be our gadget guy that's playing all over the place. Could be a little halfback, give Miles Sanders some rest. But then we had Larry Fitzgerald decide to retire in the offseason in week 2. Still on the board, though, Fluker, Big Ben, and Ridgeway. have not signed. And I think at this point, we could rule out Fluker coming in. And so we did ultimately make some changes that you'll see later in our wrap-up. But first, we have another mock draft, and this is what I mean here, mock draft 4. We had some changes between 3 and 4, but 4 and 5 are relatively the same, with Nicholas Cameron actually being the #1 projected overall pick to the Bengals. So could we see a top 10 receiver drafted by the Bengals again? They did draft Chase, so that is up there. Sharif Rushing had some issues at the Senior Bowl, but he is still slated as a #2 overall pick to us. I'm just not very high on him to be that #2 overall pick. Carmichael, though, the guy looks an absolute stud, and we could bait some teams to trade up for us. We thought about picking him in the live stream, but the thing is, I thought we needed bigger needs, and Baker might have been a target if he hadn't moved, but I think our trade actually ends up moving us back behind him, our projected trade line, so he wouldn't be a guy that is possible. So going into the offseason 3, we have some private workouts. We bring in a couple players in that point, and we also look at some free agents to go through. We gave Arif the contract, Uzuma and Ridgeway. We do need a second tight end, and Arif kind of comes in as that depth tackle guy. So the private workouts, we bring in Jason Cutler since he did not work out the other times. We'll see what he's got. We were targeting Graham Bryant with one of our first-round picks, and then from there, we kind of saw what Hugh Nails has, but I kind of was looking at these corners. I kind of wanted to see how they were, and if we actually wanted to draft a guy like Chris Carmichael. I wanted to kind of see what he had, and so we do pick him, and those are the 3 we do bring in for the workout. So the league signings as we go through: Marshawn Lattimore to the Falcons. That's a big signing for them. Next one, J.C. Jackson, the Bengals. Harrison Smith goes over to the Dolphins. Michael Gallup, that's a crazy signing there. Falcons again with Leighton Vander Esch. Gronk goes to the Colts. Kind of going through. Hightower to the Bengals. Robert Tonyan goes to the Jets. Anthony Harris goes to the Chargers. I'm sorry. We had a lot of players leave teams that were on those one-year deals and kind of go out. The Dolphins were pretty active, I saw. The Jets were pretty active. The Colts were pretty active. And then we didn't see a lot within our division. But Yannick Ngakoue going over to the Seahawks, that is a spectacular pickup by them. So we go into the draft here, the 2022 draft. And looking at the first round pick, obviously we thought, I mean, at least in my mind, they aren't going to pick a quarterback. And are they really going to pick a receiver? I thought maybe they go defense. But of course they go Nicholas Cameron, the best receiver and arguably probably the best player in the draft. So we're looking here at the #2 pick. We're looking at some of the target in the top 10. We didn't see a lot of top 10. Vegas is in there with a next year pick. The Jets giving up their 6th round pick and falling to 6. I mean, not ideal, but dropping to 6, we could get some good stuff at 6 is probably the furthest I wanted to go. The 2nd overall pick, the Jets come up and take Dominick Freeman, corner out of Utah. We kind of thought that they would take a corner and there might be a run on corners in the first 5 picks. But we had our targets while trading back. The Lions take Chris Carmichael, so that's a big pick for them. Carmichael is arguably probably the best corner in the draft. Joe Winslow, always going to go to the Texans. Russ Dawson goes to the Chargers, and then we're in there at 6. So we thought about trading back again at this point. Since Carmichael was there, we trade back behind our next pick. And our next one is 11, which I believe is our own. Alonzo Baker goes to the Bills, so might just have a backup. I don't know what Mitch is doing. And Trevon Mills is selected by the Giants. They're going to have some competition there. Jermaine Griffin goes over to the Cardinals after A.J. Green, I believe, left. Or Fitzgerald, possibly. And as we get to our pick at 11, we really saw a lot of the mock drafts talk about Graham Bryant as a guy that's for us at 22 years old out of USC. We brought him in for a scouting. He has good catching, good play rec, good zone coverage. I mean, this is a guy who's an off-ball linebacker, and we take him, and he is a hidden dev. So it's a big one there. Good strength, good speed for a linebacker at 87 for an off-ball linebacker. That's great. Good agility. He can stay with those guys in the middle, and we have a guy that pretty much go along with Eric Wilson. Manning, who fell down some of the draft boards, goes to the Lions at 12, and we're back after Akeem Givens is taken. And we were looking at Akeem Givens as a guy that can pop out on the linebacker position, that rush linebacker, moving over to a 3-4. And we did see some corners out here, and I wasn't kind of sure what we had. Mike Davis is still out here, but we weren't this high on Davis. Lindsey Clifford was a guy that's out of BYU, 21 years old. I thought he could have more development time than a lot of the other corners. And with Darby kind of playing on the outside, a 5'9" corner, playing on the inside of the slot, I felt like Clifford could play that slot position as a scrappy guy, and we take him. Normal dev, good speed though. Strength needs some help. Agility is up there. Change of direction. So I think that's a good slot corner pick there. Oliver Beaver goes to the Falcons. We are right back on the clock because of our third pick in the first round. So we thought about here, should we trade back? Really, we're just looking at Jason Cutler, that left tackle. He hasn't come off the board. Neither has any of the tackles at this point or offensive linemen. So looking to trade back probably later in the first round or the second round. We saw Vegas here at 20. We can get a couple of other picks. Particularly, I was looking at maybe some trade stuff that we might have to trade up for Hugh Nails. But ultimately, I don't like anything there. We're going to look at some of the players. We see him here, and I think we aren't going to see him fall much more, as he is the number 1 left tackle in the draft right now, and we take him. And although a normal dev, good strength, speed, acceleration, agility probably needs some work, I think this is our left tackle of the future. So Sharif Rushing goes ultimately to the Patriots at about 27 or 26. Javonte Stanford, we started seeing some of the safeties come off. It kind of made me nervous. At that, Everett comes off. Quincy Randolph. We still have a bunch of picks before our second round pick, which is actually our second round pick. Chris Barnes, start seeing the Packers, and then Richardson goes up in the first round. And I'm thinking at this point, maybe we could try to trade up to get someone. We see Artie Jones come off the board, and we're kind of thinking that Hugh Nails is going to come off the board sooner rather than later, especially after Damian Braxton comes off that Seattle pick, and I don't think he's going to survive 4 more picks. So we think about how we can trade up, and we make a deal with the Jaguars. We give them our second round picks, so we switch those, and we give them 2 later round picks, and we can come up and take who's arguably going to be our strong safety of the future, and that is Hugh Nails, 22 years old, out of the University of Washington, slated the entire time to us, and Good speed for a safety, 87. Good acceleration, agility, change of direction, good jumping. At 22 years old, he can get faster, he can get better, and I do like that. We see Quincy Givens with another one of our picks at 14, because we ended up trading one of our other second rounds that we got, or trading up our future. I think it was the one that we'd gotten from one of those first round picks. We take Quincy Givens, a rush outside linebacker out of Iowa State. Okay strength, the speed's there, but he's going to be a guy that is some work. So those were our biggest picks there. After that, really just pedestrian ones. No big things happened. Here is Graham Bryant. Good tackle, speed. We still have that upgrade, the temporary upgrade from last season. Power moves. I mean, this guy is not a rush linebacker. He is definitely a cover linebacker, and it shows. And I think we can get someone, some high motor, and I think he has some big hitting ability. Next, we go LINDSEY CLIFFORD, who was the guy we drafted at 14 to be a slot corner. Good play recognition to start out with at 72. His tackle needs some work. Press decently well. His zone and man coverage pretty decent. Speed's up there with acceleration. His agility, his jumping. I think this is a guy that could definitely play in that slot position. Although what is concerning is his injury is 78. So we need to have some depth at the corner position, especially a guy that can play in the slot. And I think we have that with McPherson and company on the roster. The pick for Jason Cutler, who looks to be our left tackle of the future. Although he is 69, nothing to write home about, the fact that his pass block is up there in the high 70s, I mean, this is a fantastic pick. Needs some development, sure, but the fact that his pass block is already that high bodes well to his development, especially protecting the back of Jalen Hurts. Hugh Nails, one of our second round picks at this. Taking more of a look at him. His tackles at 72, I'd like that to be more. His man coverage is only 65. His awareness needs to be up. His play rec is only a 62. But, I mean, this guy could come up and play and give us some good plays in the secondary. So Quincy Givens, a rush project there on the outside. Nothing big, but something we can work with in the power, the finesse moves, the block shedding, acceleration. His speed's very intriguing, as well as pursuit and play rec. I mean, this is a guy that is going to start low but has a high ceiling. We took a free safety for some depth in the safety core, or really the DB core, with Jeremy Black, a rookie out of Georgia Tech. A slower guy, so more of a guy that's up in the box, but good acceleration. Hit powers up there, his tackle, zone coverage, play rec. I mean, he's a backup. We saw CAREY Hendrick in there, so we went ahead and took him. And really the only thing that's dragging him down is actually his awareness. Not a bad QB, although his throw power could be better. But, I mean, this as our third quarterback, I mean, that's a developmental piece. We took Brian Best, as you see here, a guy that we targeted before the draft, if you watch the live stream. And I thought he had some good speed, good short route. He's really a slot receiver. Pretty undisciplined though, so we'll see how he kind of does. But I think he'd be good for pretty much depth in that position. Andy Allen was another guy switching over to that 3-4 that could have some potential to rush the passer. Not really a middle linebacking guy. His awareness is really what's dragging him down at 58. But I think with some development, he could be a decent rotational piece for the most part. I mean, he's nothing to write home about with Andy Allen, but that was a 5th or 6th round pick, 5th pick. So Marco Merritt, the tight end, is 64 overall, and this guy Ooh. This guy reminds me of a lot like a hybrid H-back type that can play in the backfield. Not going to have a lot of the speed, but could be pretty decent if he runs his routes correctly. We took a look at Dennis LeClaire, pretty a flyer pick here, and not great. His awareness is down in the 50s, but I mean, this is a guy that's a depth piece and developmental idea. Same thing with David McIntosh. I kind of wanted to see what he had before he could ever be plucked up. I mean, these are 7th round picks we're talking about here. McIntosh with some good speed at 80, but needs a lot of work if he's ever going to see the field, which is more than likely not going to happen. So looking at the picks here, Cameron at 76. Carmichael is an 80 overall. Freeman at a 79. Dawson at a 78. Baker, who was drafted to go play for the Bills, is a 78. Cameron, you see here, is a hidden dev, and they have a tandem ready to go in Cincinnati. Cameron and Chase. Freeman. The Jets need another lockdown corner, new lockdown corner, and Freeman looks to be every bit that type out there at 21 years old. Carmichael, though, for the Lions to pull off this Chris Carmichael draft, wow. This was a stud of a pick. This is, wow. That's all you can say with this one. And this guy could have been on our team. However, I feel like our draft was probably more beneficial for the team as a whole and how we could play as a team than the best player in the draft, which was Chris Carmichael. But you gotta be, you gotta give credit where credit is due. And Chris Carmichael was the best player in the draft. We knew that going in. We had a chance to get him. And the Lions got him at, I think, 3rd or 4th overall. So Carmichael was supposed to go maybe 2nd, maybe 3, and the Lions got him early. I mean, that to me shows that some of the logic in the draft is better to an extent. But this could have been a player that we had in the draft. So to finish up, we got a couple more corners to look at in this wrap up that we saw in the offseason. And that first will be Alonzo Baker. At a 76, a normal dev, trying to compete with Josh Allen. I don't know about that one. It's kind of a suspect pick with that one. And then Trevin Mills, the 72 overall, about the same overall as Danny Dimes. We could be seeing Mills shorter, well, actually sooner rather than later would be the saying there, with 93 throw power. Pretty much reminds me of what we had with Jalen Hurts. So I did in the live stream try to get 2 head coaches, or actually 2 offensive coordinators from some fired head coaches. They get hired elsewhere. So we actually get their former assistants. We're going to go with Marshawn Wallace, who's all multiple zone run, which I believe was the Packers playbook. And we pick up a former guy under Flores, and we change that defensive playbook over to Flores as well. So what I'm doing here in my thought process is we're going to use the DC and the offensive coordinators as the role play section of the offensive and defensive playbooks. We'll use those particular schemes, and then us as the coach, we're going to be the coach from there, and maybe as the franchise goes on, we might switch over to an owner-wise and play that, because I think a lot of the things are done. As we saw, Flores went over to the Bengals, so I was just kind of looking at what his playbook was and what his scheme was at that point, so we can match it with that whole thing. So in the next episode, we will go through all 3 preseason games and the corresponding cuts for them. For our preseason, it will be New England, KC, and the LA Chargers. And then we start week 1 against the Lions. I mean, before that though, we have a Hall of Fame induction. We got to do our scouts. We got to think about what we want to do. And we have to see where we are in this franchise. I didn't mess around with the rosters. Everything is good for all the other teams. Everything's good for our team. So I'll show you the depth chart when we start as well. And that'll be the starting depth chart of preseason. Then we'll go through the preseason games. We'll do the cuts and then our starting week 1 depth chart at the end of the next episode. So, thanks for hanging out, guys. Don't forget to leave a like below, comment, and subscribe. Sorry it took so long to get this out. And it is out now. We're not going to have a lot of time before the next episode. So, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.